You're welcome to another interesting edition of the Economy and Politics show where we discuss key developments in the economy as they affect households. Today, we'll be looking at Nigeria and the quest for shared prosperity. And my guest is Mr. Paul Alaje, the senior economist with SPM Professionals. Nice to have you on the program once again after a while, Mr. Paul.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's been a long time.
Yeah, quite a while. For our guests, we'll be assessing the 28th Nigeria Economy Summit, which is commencing today in Abuja. The NES is Nigeria's largest and well-attended public and private sector economic summit. But before we begin the conversation, let us give you some key stories from last week. Nigeria's oil and gas sector received a good boost with the announcement by the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission that oil production averaged 1,014,485 barrels per day in October 2022. Also, the Federal Inland Revenue Service issued a public notice appointing MTN, Airtel, and all money deposit banks as VAT collection agents pursuant to its powers under Section 14, Subsection 3 of the VAT Act as amended. Consequently, effective from 1st January 2023, the appointed VAT agents will be responsible for withholding VAT at source on all taxable supplies made by their vendors and remitting same to FIRS in the currency of transaction. Those are some of the key economic stories from last week. If you're joining us, it is the Economy and Politics program, and our conversation is on Nigeria and the quest for shared prosperity. My guest is Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals. Mr. Paul, let's first begin. Of course, today the big summit is beginning, and the conversation is on 2023 and beyond, priorities for shared prosperity. It is the largest gathering of public and private sector players. For you, as an economist and one that follows this event, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, SCN, GCON, said this conference, this time, should address what is critical to Nigerians. We know that they do a lot to move from talk shop, but what is very critical for them to address this year? What are your expectations? The Vice President wants them to find out solutions to inflation and other issues that are causing the high cost of living for Nigerians.
The Nigeria Economic Summit play a vital role as it affects the entire country and it affects the economic structure we have in Nigeria. They continue to remain the vanguard for the masses and the private sector. And as they're having the 28th summit, I can tell you, Nigeria Economic Summit will focus, and I think should focus, if I can say, on the critical issue that affects the economy. And if you ask me, what is that critical? What is critical for private sector? Affects issue around energy, from 300 naira per liter of diesel beginning of this year to over 550. As at yesterday, the price of diesel. Again, the price of bag of rice has since increased from January at 22,500 now to about 38 to 42,000 naira depending on market. What is common to all of these is inflation. Inflation is that invisible force that is taking money from people's pockets without reducing the face value. I strongly believe that that will be one of the key conversations that will be discussed at the economic summit and what different players around the economy will be discussing. Again, this is not the only thing that is affecting us. We have also seen exchange rates went down until very recently that we have started seeing some level of relief on Naira. Naira has received several blows from dollar because of people speculating against their own local currency. But we have started seeing some redemption, if you like. We have started seeing some healing process, if you like, for Naira. But we hope that this will last. And I believe that actors will provide even better solution as campaign have started, not about to really. Campaign have started towards 2023 election. These are key conversations as it affects monetary, because both inflation and exchange rate, they are monetary in nature. So monetary authority, we have to be put on their toes. And you have also seen central bank recently announced the designing of Naira. What should it mean for private sector? Will it be a welcome development, or should it be something we should take with a pinch of salt as we are changing the face value and not the real value? All of these are the conversation I think will be discussed. And I think more importantly, as I've spoken a bit about what may concern monetary authority, fiscal authority should not also be exempted. Nigeria is borrowing more than 50% of 2023 budgets. Now, budget has been passed, but what many have not paid attention to is that each time the president flies, the gas that will be inside this plane, we are going to borrow more than 50% to fly him out of Nigeria. Each time we are paying any civil servant, more than 50% of the money we are paying as salaries is borrowed. Not my figures, according to the budget presented by President Buhari himself to the National Assembly, as 50% of the total expenditure is going to be on borrowing. And part of the borrowing, 50% of our debt service will come from borrowing, according to the budget presented by the president. I know that this will have implications to private sector, because for all monies we have borrowed from external sources, we are now going to pay more, because at official rate and any window, we have seen that Naira has been devalued, since beginning of this year. It's now around 430, inching towards 440. And this we of course are concerned any person that mean well for Nigeria regarding how are we going to pay back. And most importantly is we are not also going, I don't think the economic summit will exempt the trade authority, because every economy stands on three legs: fiscal, monetary, and trade. Trade authority in Nigeria seems to have been reduced to buying and selling to SMEs. Trade authority should discuss import and export, how Nigeria will compete in the global market. This is not what we are seeing. And I think to capital, I'm also expecting the economic summit to talk about technology. How do we dominate in this modern era? How do we make data more available, penetration to increase, and affordable for Nigeria to use? This is the only way we can say that among Committee of Nations, we are presenting themselves and we are putting our best forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Paul, for those perspectives. We've gone through the itinerary. Of course, there will be conversations around technology. And the thing about trade, my concern, which you've also raised, is that till now we've not seen the revised trade policy. I know we had a conversation several months ago this year with the trade minister. We're still waiting for that trade policy. I hope this administration doesn't elapse before having that revised trade policy. If not, the next president has to come on board. And we're missing out, like you said, big time as a country in global competitive trade. And that brings me to your assessment of the state of the economy today. This week, we expect the president, if the Minister of State for Budget, Finance and National Planning, Prince Clement Agba, said it at the press conference of the NES Summit. He said that this week we expect to see the report on how this government has been able to address poverty. From your analysis, has this government walked the talk in lifting millions of Nigerians from poverty? Or is it just a normal rhetoric?
Well, I don't think you should follow my figures, but if you go by what IMF have said, IMF continue to report, and the report coming from UNDP, 2018, Nigeria had over 90 million people, not in poverty, but in multidimensional poverty. That is even worse than being in poverty. This includes people that don't have access to toilets, which includes the distance from your room to your toilet, which includes access to having a kitchen, access to a water, potable water. People that live in multidimensional poverty. And we have also seen reports on urban poor, which is even worse than rural poor. We have seen all manner of how all of these have led to all manner of criminality, according to reports that have been shared by international organizations. Now, when you look at what IMF have reported, at least we have seen about 5 million Nigerians added to poverty bracket within in year 2020. 2021, we have seen something close to that as number of people that even became poor. So rather than us having a net of 10 million people lifted out of poverty, what we are seeing on the average is between 3 to 5 million adding to poverty bracket. And as we speak, over 30%, I'm just being charitable, because some reports actually call it 42%. But to be charitable, over 30% of the population are said to be living below poverty line. And if you ask what is poverty line are those that are living below $1.90, and in some cases $1.95. And if you check what is the minimum wage, as of exchange rates at the real market price today, at the street market price today, if you calculate what the street rate is, and you convert that to dollar, $1.95 or $1.90, or for convenience, $2. Convert it at the street market rate and find what that would be in a month. You see that everybody on minimum wage are poor. Everybody, whether you work for government or work with private sector, that's on one side. There are now people that are being paid less than 30,000 naira, and they are workers. So you now ask if government have walked the talk. I think the answer should be obvious. The answer is that rather than us lifting people out of poverty, policies and global disruption as well as externalities has submerged people in poverty. Flood that submerged the price of rice. Now people wonder, it's only rain. How come the price of rice continue to increase? The price of rice became, the rice consumption became an expensive commodity overnight because of flood. And flood disconnected southern Nigeria from northern Nigeria in some regards. It submerged Bayelsa State to the point that the governor became so worried, and politicians started using as political points. And that, as if that were not enough, Jigawa State, the largest rice mill in Nigeria, the largest rice farm in Nigeria, was submerged, and the price of rice jumped from 24,000 now to about 38,000 naira retail price. If you go to the market, you see what the price is saying. So, because of policy and and as a country, we appear not to be ready to develop this country. What policy makers, in my own opinion, what policy makers want to achieve is just to see figures that we have achieved growth, and the growth is positive. Perhaps because economists have said when you have two negative growth consecutively, year on year, you are going to be declared recession. Not knowing that recession is not the real figure. The real thing you should be pursuing is economic development that can take your people out of poverty, deprivation, and of course, to take them from economic retrogression. But if you ask me, honestly, my answer is very obvious. I don't think government has been able to walk the talk. Perhaps because the economic challenges are much, much weighty than the policies of government, or perhaps because government are not prepared enough to economic eventualities that they are witnessing as we are experiencing it globally today.
All right, Mr. Paul, we are building up to the elections. People have declared their intentions to lead the country. It's going to be a big task for the next president. What for you are the key priorities? Because we are talking about rising inflation, we're talking about rising interest rates, we're talking about unemployment. The last time the NBS, National Bureau of Statistics, released their unemployment reports was third quarter 2020. And I hope the NBS is listening, because we need to get an updated unemployment report. Poverty, like you've rightly said, is on the increase. The next president definitely has his work cut out. But what for you are the key priorities? Because if we do not address these socio-economic challenges, we may be heading for a state of despair.
There are a lot of things that politicians or anybody that wants to lead a country or state need to bother about. Unfortunately, I see people dancing at their rally. I see politicians dancing. When I look at the economic parameters and I see politicians dancing on TV screen, I wonder if it's a comedy. They don't know that it's high time we started controlling our population. None of them is talking about population control. You cannot be having GDP managing to grow at 3% and your population is also growing at 3%. Nobody is talking about it. You cannot be having inflation in 20% official rates, because my own personal basket of commodity has grown by more than 40%. So if my basket of commodity has grown by 40%, I don't know by how much yours has grown. But I cannot be using the general inflation figure that is published by the Bureau of Statistics as average. To me, that's the least possible. But as a person, 40%. How will the next president, the next governor, the next minister, what policy are they going to formulate? Those are the things we should be hearing. Again, flood happened. Almost half of Nigeria was flooded. And the minister is even saying places where some people thought they have seen the worst, that you are not among the first 10. This is a statement that should make all of us cover our faces in shame. That with what we have seen in Bayelsa is not even among the first 10. The best politician turn it to is to throw banter. Which one are more affected? You are not more affected. Nobody is speaking of how do we mitigate this crisis so that it does not happen to us again. So the next president must tell us that when water drops from the sky, how will it not affect the price of rice, the price of beans? They must find the linkages. Again, what is happening to exchange rates? The Central Bank of Nigeria cannot print the dollars. How come that if anything happened globally that we call externalities, it will tremendously knock down the price of naira? What are they going to do? Debt. The person is saying that the government you are coming into is a government that is indebted, such that the money you will spend, 50% of the money will be borrowed. and you are still dancing on TV screen. Are we okay at all? So the government, and nobody is telling us how are you going to generate revenue without asking people. If you tell us about taxes, how are you going to do taxes for over 42% of your population that are poor? And you will not tax our private sector from business. Nigeria flow with milk and milk and honey. That's what I knew when I was in primary school. Today, that milk, which is symbolized, I mean, we use it to represent oil. In 2023 budget, government is saying that milk that flows is going to contribute less than 10% to government revenue. In fact, less than 10% of your entire budget expenditure. What does it mean? Do we still have milk in that in oil at all? Meanwhile, we have new oil field that has been mentioned, but nothing is going on. Libya has overtaken Nigeria. Nigeria used to be the largest in Africa. Libya has now overtaken Nigeria. What will the new president do? These are real conversations. So when they say that people should come for debate, it's not time to say you destroy Nigeria, we destroy it together. It's not that kind of argument we want to hear. What we want to hear is, how will you stop oil thefts? Sure. With hundreds of illegal connections, oil thefts, people stealing oil in vessels, and something must be wrong with us as a nation. We have also seen, what do we call it now? We've also seen a byproduct of oil that is unaccounted for over Nigeria. So the things politicians should tell us, anybody that is coming should discuss with us. It's not about if they don't work us, they should shut up. That's not what we want to hear. It's not about how we will be a fruit, we will not spend money. That's not what we want to hear. We are not saying don't spend money in the right thing. Because you can also not starve the economy by keeping money that will be spent on right thing, on capital. We are currently running 20 to 25% ratio. 20% or 25% of the entire budget is going on capital expenditure. How do we expand that? To make capital to be 70. Who we have the liver, quote and unquote, speaking in local parlance, who we have the mind, who we have the will to reduce federal civil service, who we have the will to reduce amount of money we give to politicians, public office holder. And I'm not talking about salary, I'm talking of allowances. Because the salary is not the real money, it's the allowances. How do we cut short security votes for politicians? These are real issues that anybody that wants to lead must discuss. Now, we imported education, about $1 billion is the cost of importing education. How do we create alternative locally? The UI of this world, the UNN of this world, the ABU of this world, the Obafemi Awolowo University, Creative of this world. How do we empower this university? And not just only public universities, even private universities. How do we empower them so that they can compete globally? These are real conversations that I am expecting going forward as we build up into 2023 election, education, health, income of people, poverty reduction, inflation reduction, and so on and so forth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul. I mean, you've stressed the key points, and you know that there are several economic plans rolled out by presidential candidates of leading parties. We'll continue to interrogate them, and of course, we hope to engage the likes of you to see, x-ray thoroughly how this will really affect our nation if any of them emerges as president. But thank you once again for the time, Mr. Paul Alaje. I love the passionate way you expressed your interventions. It shows that as a nation, we must come to the point of reality. We are in dire straits and we need to address our challenges head on. Thank you very much for the time. Mr. Paul Alaje, Senior Economist, SPM Professionals. And that will be all for this edition of the Economy and Politics Show. You can follow our social media platforms to get updates on developments in the socio-economic space, and visit our website www.proshare.co to read our latest news stories, articles, reports, and watch our videos. Just to inform our viewers that ProShare has released another incisive report, the CEO Remuneration 2022, CEOs in a post-COVID era, what matters most. It is important for you to be conversant with what is shaping the minds of business leaders and how it affects the economy and populace. Log on to our website for the report and watch out for the next edition of the Economy and Politics Show, where we'll expand the conversation. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching and have a lovely day.